In this video, we are going back to square one with Formstack Forms and Formstack Documents, and we are going to create a very simple document automation, showing you just how easy it is to integrate these two tools. So if you have never created a integration between Forms and Documents, or maybe you've just never created a Formstack document before, this is the video for you. Hi, I'm Kyle, the creator of No Code Collab, a site where we have tips, tricks, and tutorials for your next no-code project. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our channel and head over to our website where we have more code snippets and different things to help you with these tutorials. Before we get into the actual tools, here's how this is going to work. We're going to show you how to build a really simple form using Formstack Forms. We're going to show you how to then build a really simple document building Formstack Documents. We're then going to show you how to hook the two tools up so that when your form is out in the wild and someone fills it out and hits submit, that data is going to go from the form to the document. And then that document, after it's generated, is going to be sent to you via email automatically. So here you can see a little preview of the document that we're going to be creating inside of Formstack Documents. It's really simple, and that's intentional. But don't let this fool you. You can create some really complex documents inside of Formstack Documents. You can have logic on which pages, which sections you want to include. You can have different tables. You can have conditional showing and hiding of images. So you can really do a lot of stuff with these documents. For this tutorial, we're going to try to keep it as simple as possible. So you can see here, we've got a movie title, we have a release date, a genre, and a runtime. So it is very simple. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a form that is going to feed in the information to this document. So we're going to need to create those 4 questions so that we can capture that information. So I'm going to open up Formstack Forms. I'm going to create a new form. So you'll need to log in. You're going to create a new form. And I'm going to call this movie test. And it's going to be in the uncategorized folder. Great. So now I have the start of my form, and all I need to do is drag in my questions. So the first question was the movie title. So for that, I probably want a short answer question, and I will just call this movie title. Then I'm going to go back and I need a release date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the date and the time. I'm going to add that. I'm going to drag that over. I'm going to call this release date. And I don't need time, so I'm going to pull the time off. I just want the date and the year. Okay. Now I've got a genre. So let's just to keep this simple, let's add a radio button because I can only have one genre. And I'm going to call this genre. And my first option is going to be drama, comedy. We'll go alphabetical and drama. And maybe we'll do a third one, which is thriller. So we have 3 options there. You can obviously add as many as you want. If you want to add a new option, you could do horror as well. Horror. And then I'm going to drag that to make it alphabetical. Okay. And now let's add, the last one was runtime. So I need to have a number. So I'm going to add a number field. And I'm going to call this runtime. And the format is 0 decimal places. The minimum value is going to be 0. And maybe the maximum is going to be, I don't know, 240. That would be a 4-hour movie. I'm sure there's a 4-hour movie out there. And then just to have some fun, let's use a slider so that we can have a slider so that people can go back and forth. One thing to note that I'm thinking about here on the genre is you could have used a drop-down list if you wanted to. I'm just using a radio because then all of your options are right there and you just click it. But you could have used a drop-down list. If you wanted more than one option, you could have used a checkbox. But that's So you've got options there. So we've got our 4 questions set up. If I want to view this live form, I can see I've got my movie title, which I can put in Uncle Buck. The release date, I think, was August 16th. 19. Oh, I'm going to have to. So now I can see I need to update my field here. This was a comedy, and the runtime, I believe, was 99 minutes. So one thing I'm going to do now that I see that my date picker is off, I'm going to go back and I'm going to update my release date, and I'm going to go allowed years is going to be current years plus 0 because I don't want any movies in the future. Or maybe I want to allow movies 2 years because they might be released. And then let's say I want to go back 80 years. Okay. So now I have, if we refresh this, I should be able to see that I can go back quite a ways. So I think it was 1989. So I did a little test on my form. Everything looks like it's running good. Now it's not hooked up to anything. So submitting this form, yes, it will go to Formstack Forms and it'll go into my submissions in Formstack Forms, but it's not going to send to my document. So now let's head over to Formstack Documents and take a peek there. So inside of my document, once you're in, I'm going to create a new document, and I'm going to call this, again, movie test document. Document. Next. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start with a document that I've already created. I like to do it this way because I find that the editing and the authoring capabilities of Word and PowerPoint, or in my case, I'm actually using Pages and Keynote. I like those better than the online versions of those editors. So what I actually like to do is create my document outside of Formstack Documents and then load it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to my document now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to swap out my data for variables that I have made up. So in this case, this is the movie title. So the way that you do variables in Formstack Documents are you're going to use a curly bracket, a $, and then you make up whatever you want. So I'm going to call this movie title. Now the reason that I am doing it, I capitalize title and movie, is that's called camel casing. It just makes it a little easier to read. But keep everything as one word for simplicity's sake. You could use underscores and things. But we're going to head over now, and I'm going to say release date, and I'm going to call this, we're going to call this $, curly bracket, $, release date. I'm going to call this one curly bracket, $, genre. And now what I'm actually going to do with my runtime, so what's happening is on my form, I'm just asking for a number. So only a number is going to come through with that form. So here, I'm actually going to go like this. I'm going to say runtime, and I'm going to call this runtime, and then I'm going to have a space and then minutes. And so it's going to just insert that runtime, that number right into this document. So now what I've done is I've effectively taken my document and I've taken all the bits of information that I'm going to collect in my form, and I've swapped them out for variables. The variables could be whatever you want them to be. Keep them as one word or use underscores. Don't have long sentences. Don't have spaces. Just keep it short and concise. Have a naming convention, because what's going to happen is as you're putting these variables in, you're going to need to map them from Formstack Documents. And once you have 100 variables or 50 variables, you're not going to, reading a long sentence of variable names is a pain, and you're going to get cut off, and you're only going to see a portion. So keep them as concise as possible and something that is easily identifiable to the question that you're asking. And that will make the mapping much easier. So I've got my document now, and all I'm going to do, I'm in Pages. So I'm actually going to go File, Export to Word. And I want to export a docx, or we're going to call this movie test, a docx file I'm adding on my desktop. So now I've saved that file. When I come back here, I'm going to choose my file. I'm going to go to my desktop, movie test, upload that. And you can see that my movie test is a docx file, Microsoft Word. I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to, now we're talking about delivery. So we set up our document. Now we're talking about delivery. I'm going to send my document to an email address. That's the default. You could also send it to Drive. You could send it to other third-party storage solutions. You could send it to Signature, Formstack Sign, maybe Hello Sign, some other DocuSign. You can send it wherever you want after. In this case, all I'm going to do is send it to my email address. And then I'm going to hit next. And now we're talking about where we're getting the data from. So I'm going to integrate with an external service that is Formstack Forms. If I wanted to, I could upload a whole CSV, a spreadsheet of all of my data, or I could use a collection form where Formstack Documents will actually create the form for me. Now, in this situation, because I have such a simple form, I probably could use the data collection form, and then I wouldn't have to build out this integration. But the collection form is very rudimentary. It just is a bunch of fields where you just enter in data. Using Formstack Forms allows you to have logic and different pages and styling. And so that's what we're going to do here. Now I'm going to click Finish. And now what I have is I have my movie test document. So if I come up here to my tabs across the top, this is just kind of a snapshot of what's been going on with my file, how many merges I've had. Then I can manage my file, where if you have an updated version of this file, then you could upload it here, or you could even dive in and you could look at the editing online. If you want to make just a quick, if you just want to make a quick edit, so you can see here the line that I had didn't come through from pages. So maybe I'm going to insert I think there's a way to insert a horizontal line. Maybe actually what I'll do is I'll just, give it one of these. So I'm inserting a horizontal line. Maybe I'll make it bold. Can I? Or a little bigger. Okay. So you can come in and you can edit right online in the Cloud app. Maybe I want to make this let's make this a little smaller. Let's make this italic. Just so you know that you can actually edit in the online version of this tool. So that is the Manage File tab. If you come over here to Settings, you can see what the name of your document is, the output. Do you want it to be Word? Do you want it to save as a PDF? Do you want to save this as an image? So you've got a lot of options. But then what you can also do is you can change the file name. So when they create this merged document, what do you want that file to be called? And so in this case, I want to call it the movie title. So it's going to be movie test document, movie title. So movie test document dash Uncle Buck dash Avatar, whatever it is. I'm going to set my time zone to just Central Time where I am. And then you can also set your mode. So if you're testing, I recommend doing test mode so that these don't count towards your actual merges. But you just flip it to test mode, and then you can save the data. For our case, since it's so simple, I'll just keep it active. The one thing that I do like to do when you're in your settings, go to advanced settings and say use field map for custom integrations. So do that and then save your settings. And you'll notice that now we have a new tab on the top. And what's going to happen is that field map is going to show us all the variables that we have in our document. So if I click on the field map, now what it's done is it's looked at the document that we've put in, and it's told us, oh, you've got a movie title, you've got release date in there, you've got genre, you've got runtime. That is looking in our document and showing us the variables that are in there. If I were to come in here and I were to add a new variable, say, let's call this director, right? What's going to happen is in my field map, you can see it's saved to web merge. My field map will update, and now I will have director in my field map. Now, Using the field map is a bit more of a custom advanced feature, so we're not going to go into that, but I always like to have that on because I like to see what's going on in my document in case I have a lot of variables. So I'm going to head back over. I'm just going to take out that director because we don't have the question for that. Save to web merge. Web merge is the previous version of it's what Formstack Documents used to be called. So if you see web merge around, web merge, Formstack Documents, same thing. You can also see it in the URL. The URL is still web merge. Okay. So I'm coming out of here. I've got my field map. If I want to, I can test. So I could actually enter in information on my movie title, release date, all that stuff. It'll merge it. And now I'm looking at my delivery tab. So this is actually going to come to my work email. But what I'm going to do is you could send this anywhere. You could send this to a personal email address, a different email address. You could send this to a merge field. So maybe you're collecting the email from the person in the form and you want to send that through. You could have your merge field be your delivery destination. So that's really powerful as well. So in this case, it's going to come to my work email. So then looking at merge is some more advanced things that we won't go over today. So you don't have to worry about merge for this more simple tutorial. So let's just quick look at test. Let's try test. So we had Uncle Buck. Our release date, I think, was August. Was it 16th, 1989. Our genre was comedy. Now I'm writing whatever I want in here. So this isn't held to my radio buttons or anything. This is just me. I could put in gibberish here if I wanted to. And then my runtime was 99. So I'm going to test my document. And what's going to happen is it's going to go out and it's going to take these values and put them in where the variables were. So now if I look at my document, opening the document, and you can see here, I've got Uncle Buck. So now because I tested, it did have this sample in there. And interestingly, because I had it looked like the Word document didn't have the line, but once it rendered, it actually did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back into my source file. I'm going to delete this, and I'm actually just going to, let's do this underline again so that I know I can see it. So let's just do that. And this is the thing with Formstack Documents. It is so powerful and it's fantastic, but what ends up happening is you do need to debug a little bit. There's going to be things where you're like, that's kind of weird. And you want to come in and you want to look at the document. You want to understand what's going on. So don't be afraid of that. If things don't go quite right, look at your source file, look at the variables, look at all the stuff, and just kind of debug bit by bit. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to export this again to, I didn't want to do EPUB. I'm going to export this again to Word. And what do I call it? Movie test. And I'm going to replace my file. Now I'm going to come in, I'm going to go to manage file, and I'm actually going to upload my new file. And my new file is movie test. So it's a new version of this file. And so now if I look at it, this should be the version that I just added in there. So now if we go test that again, I could test this document, and what's going to happen is the document is going to come out where I've got all of the things that I just added. So now let's hook these two tools up. Let's hook up Forms and let's hook up Documents and be on our way. So I'm going to head back over to Formstack Forms, and I'm going to go to Settings. And on the left-hand side, there's this bit that says Integrations. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an integration to this form, and it's Formstack Documents. It's the big button at the top. It's right in front of you. I want to actually turn this on. What I need to do is actually go grab my API key. You're going to come over and you're going to go to your settings in the top right corner, and there's this thing called API access. So you're going to click on API access. You're going to click new API, and it's going to give you these two values for the API key and the API secret. Once you paste those in, the two things are now talking to each other. So I actually just used the credentials from another form that I had already used. So once you've done this once, you should be able to just remember that API key and not need to re-enter it every time or create a new API key every time. So I use those credentials. Those are all loaded in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a document to merge with, and I'm going to grab my movie test document. And what's going to happen is it's now looking at that document and it's saying, what are the variables in there? We've got the movie title variable. We've got the release date variable, genre variable, runtime variable. Now all I have to do is map those fields. So my movie title is going to map to my movie title question in Formstack Forms. My release date is going to map to my release date question. Now, Formstack Forms and Documents was smart enough to know that, oh, I've got a question called genre and a variable called genre. I've got a question called runtime and a variable called runtime. So it automatically did that. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to turn on my integration, and everything is saved because it's saving automatically. And so now my integration, my Formstack Forms and Documents should be connected. So what I can do now is I can go test. So if I come back to my form, I'm going to refresh it. I'm just going to call this, let's do Kyle's Great Movie. And it was released on my birthday. And it is a horror film that is running way too long. 220 minutes, 221 minutes. Okay, so now what I expect to happen is I'm going to submit this form. All of this information is going to be submitted because I just set up my API and my Formstack Forms and I integrated that and I mapped the fields. What's going to happen is I'm going to submit it. That data is going to be sent to Formstack Documents. It's going to take those bits of information, put it in where the variables are. And then because I had my delivery set up to send to my email, once the document is run, I'm going to get an email that includes that document. That's what I expect to happen. It can typically take a minute or three for it to kind of all run through and everything to work. So keep that in mind, but that's what I'm anticipating is going to happen right now. So here we go. Submitting. Thank you. The form was successfully submitted. So it was about a minute or two later. I just received this email. It included an attachment called Movie Test Document. What I'm going to do is I'm going to download that. Let's open it up. It was Kyle's Great Movie, and let's see what it looks like. Kyle's Great Movie, October 17th, 1983. I said it was a horror, and it was 221 minutes. Exactly what I put in on the form. So this is, again, is a really simple example, but what's happened now is I've created a form. People have entered information, they've hit submit, and now to my inbox, without me doing anything, I've received a document that has that data, that information all cooked into the document. So that is just the beginning. You can make really powerful, complex document automations using these two tools. And the really nice part is all you needed to do was get the API key from Formstack Documents and put it into Formstack Forms. And then you just map the two tools. You map the fields. If you were to use another form tool, you would have had to go from that form tool to some other third party like Zapier or something else, and then send from Zapier then to Formstack Documents. So there's another step. But because you're using these two tools that are so tightly integrated, it's so quick to create that tight data transfer. So that is the real power of using these two tools together. And I hope you can start to see the potential for how you can really easily automate your documents using Formstack Forms and Formstack Documents. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave a comment or you can reach out to me via email. And please subscribe to our channel, check out our website, and we will see you at the next tutorial.